All right, this is gonna be Atlas's 4th time being tapped, and then I'm gonna also do some desensitizing with the training stick. And I've already done some desensitizing with the rope that you'd seen earlier. It's gonna be the same kind of process, but just with the stick. And I'm just kind of experimenting and seeing if I can continue to do that while waiting for relaxation. So I'm just gonna tap him here with my hand. So I wanted to start transitioning from tapping with the dressage whip to my hand, just because I would, I'll always have my hand, so I can kind of practice that. And it's gonna be the same exact process as with the whip. So like here I'm starting to tap with the dressage whip again. He was very like shaky today. He wanted to shake a lot, and I think he's just releasing some tension. So I'm just gonna wait here until he relaxes, and I'll just let him shake and do whatever he needs to do here. There we go. I should have probably stopped there because he's licking and chewing and figuring it out. It could also be he's trying to like kind of get rid of it. I had a mare that would do that, but with touch, like he would touch her and she would continually shake, and eventually she stopped doing it. But it's interesting because he just kind of started doing that. So he lowered his head there, and I took the crop off, but I probably should have done that a little bit sooner. But as far as the hand tapping goes, it's the same thing. It's just you're using your hand. And I think that will be a bit easier for me once we're under saddle and just on the ground in general, because sometimes I just won't have the dressage whip with me. So I'd like him to have another cue as well. So now we have some nice licking and chewing. This is good. So I believe this is my last tapping video with him for a while. I'll show like a progress one, but you kind of get the idea at this point. So now I've moved on to the withers here. So he's kind of moving around. I'm just gonna follow him. He still has a little bit of a head shake, and I'm just gonna go with him. I probably could be going a bit slower with my stick here, and just letting him take his time. Sometimes I get a little impatient and like too goal oriented. I need to probably calm that down, but that's a little bit better with my stick. It doesn't seem as fast as it was. So I'm just gonna let him work through this. He's trying to connect here. I should stop here because he's doing some licking and chewing. Whole body shake there. So I should have stopped a little bit earlier. I'm not sure what I was looking for. I guess I'm assuming that I was waiting for him to stop shaking, because I think I was still thinking it was like my old mare who was just trying to avoid stuff, but I think that's him trying to release. So I should have stopped when he was licking and chewing, and maybe even when he was shaking, because I want to kind of see what happens afterward. So I probably should have tried that. I don't know if that would have helped or not, but to see if he would release afterward. But he's investigating me. He's interested in me. He's usually not like this, and I'll let him sniff me and investigate me. If you have any like thought that your horse might want to bite you, obviously don't let him do this, but I know Atlas pretty well. And usually when you're doing this type of thing, they're more inquisitive and curious than anything else. And then after he was kind of searching around, he did release and licked and chewed, so that's really nice. But it gets them to connect. They're more interested in you afterwards. So that's what I found with my Mustangs anyways, that they're more interested in you. They're like, okay, like I think it's very scientific method of that, but I'm just gonna follow him here. I'm just going a little bit behind the withers on the back. But it's basically like, okay, the person who is doing the tapping is kind of helping him get a dopamine release, and so they're kind of associating you with that. As far as I understood it, I could be wrong, but I kind of waited till he was done head shaking and he lowered his head, so I want to stop, and then he immediately wants to come and sniff the stick. And like my other Mustang really likes to put the end, like the handle of the dressage whip, in his mouth. I think that's all part of them coming from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic, so they're going back to grazing. They need something in their mouth, and then they can kind of start coming back from that worried state and working with some saliva. I believe that's what it is. So I'm just gonna let him hang out here and wait for him to lick and chew and just kind of relax a little bit. And he wants to kind of sniff me again, and I'm gonna let him do that. There, now we have some licking and chewing. That's great. I'll let him move around, like he can back up if he needs to, but I like this nice relaxed posture that he has now. And we've moved on to a different spot that I hadn't shown before, so that's interesting. And he's just more interested in me. And it's really stayed since I've done this, but it's really, really interesting. So he wants to nose me again. That's perfectly cool. So really, I mean, he didn't necessarily need to be tapped at this point, because I pretty much want to use the tapping for when he's like looking away, and then I kind of reset him with it. But for the sake of practicing it and training it in, I'm just kind of moving on. So I think you can pretty much use that either way. And then I'm just gonna wait here. So I'm just moving him in front of the camera here. So I just walked around the other side. I had to get some more treats and then reposition him so we could do the other side. So again, he's doing that head shaking that we saw on the other side, which is interesting because he didn't really do it any of the other times. And you can see his ears flicking back and forth following that whip as well. So he did do some licking. I probably could have stopped at that point. So I don't know about the difference today. Like, I know that was a hot day, so maybe he was thinking it was a bug and he was just more annoyed today than he was at a different time. I'm not sure, but it's just interesting to note the difference and then kind of take in the surroundings and the context around it, and then I'll kind of look out for that in the future, because I don't believe he's done that since then. So it's just interesting to think about. Now he's completely done with the head shaking. His ears are still flicking, but well, now he's looking at something, but they were still kind of flicking back and forward slightly following the whip. So there they go. So I'm just gonna wait for him here. There, he lowered his head, and I'll take it away. And then I'll let him sniff it if he wants. If he wants to chew on it, that's fine. There we go. Good. He has a nice lick and chew, and he's got a nice relaxed posture. He's coming up to me, but he's doing it in a nice way. He's kind of just using his lips on me. There we go. And he wants to put the stick in his mouth. That's totally fine. I'll let him chew on it, lick it, whatever. Just not swallow it, but it just helps get them back to the parasympathetic nervous system and back to relaxation. There, and so see, now he does some more licking and chewing after. Just kind of going back to grazing mode. And I'll just let him lick and chew for however long he needs to. So I'll offer him like the handle of my whip, or I'll just offer him like my flat hand, like I would give him a treat. If he wants to lick on that, that would be totally fine. And then I just went ahead and started tapping again once he stopped licking. So I was doing the neck and then the withers and then the back. So that's just kind of the series that I was working on. And there's a bug flying around. So I'm trying to shoo away the bug and continue like rhythmically tapping him. So not perfect, but we'll try. And I'm just kind of waiting. Now he's gotten rid of the head shaking. But he hasn't, there we go. And so he put his neck down, relaxed. Now he's kind of interested in the brush, and I'll just let him investigate that if he'd like. Sometimes just letting him sniff around there will result in a lick and a chew. He didn't that time, that's fine. I'm just gonna wait. I'm gonna give him time. You gotta be patient with this exercise. I mean, you gotta be patient with all of them, but especially this, because there's so many different results. Like, your horse might not lick and chew for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Like, that's a possibility. You just got to be patient. I see a lot of people who are just not patient enough, waiting for their horse to do these things or expecting them to do something else. And it's like, you just have to work with the horse you have at the moment. So it's not a robot. We got to just work with what we have. You know, they all have feelings and good days and bad days just like we do. So we just kind of have to roll with it and just not have a time frame or a huge goal that we have to do. I do little baby goals for my horses. Like, most of the time it's like, I want them to be relaxed. I want them to just like be connected with me, or, you know, something like that, versus like, he needs to do this maneuver well, or he needs to place this high in the show. it's different kinds of goals in there. He immediately lowered his neck, and I only had to tap like 3 times. So that was really nice. I like that fast reaction. So the further on you go with this, it should be faster. It should be a couple taps and then they go back to relaxation. That is the goal with this. Because my goal would be, if I'm riding him or working him and he gets a little worried, I can tap him a few times and then he's like, okay, I'm okay. So that's what I really would like. But I mean, you don't have to necessarily do that. You could just tap him every once in a while and just help him relax, and kind of sort out some tension in their body. But I mean, that's really my goal for using the tapping. So he stopped moving and kind of lowered his head, so I put that away and put that down. I'll let him lick my hand if he'd like. There's a nice, pretty timely lick and chew. Like, it didn't take him long, and then he has a nice head lowering. Like, I'm pretty happy with his body language after every tap. He gets pretty relaxed. His top line's pretty horizontal, so it looks pretty good. You should always be more relaxed than when you started. That's pretty key with any training, but this as well. So if they're getting more worried, he got a little scared there. I think either the rope touched him or I tripped over my lash and he got scared, but not a big deal. We'll just kind of pretend like, that's all right. Like, it doesn't, I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it, you know? I'm happy that he jumped and then he came right back and he was fine. So it's not a big deal. But my goal for this is very similar to when I desensitized with the lead rope. So I'm just gonna go ahead and desensitize. He already knows how to do this, and I'm using this as the tapping. So if I think he blinked his eyes there, and I took it away, and then I'm just gonna walk off. Like, you don't necessarily have to do that, but you don't have to do the walking off part. But I think I'm just gonna move over to the shade a bit. But my goal is, it's gonna be the same as the tapping. So instead of tapping, it's gonna be the lash goes over his back, and then I'm waiting for that sign of relaxation, whatever it may be, and then as soon as that happens, I'm taking it off. And yes, that's like traditional, regular, natural horsemanship, negative reinforcement training, yes. But I was trying to wait until he completely, like, licked and chewed, blew his nose, lowered his head and neck, really just relaxed a bit more like he was in the tapping. I'm not sure if that is any different than actual negative reinforcement training, but at the time I thought I should experiment with that and give it a shot. So, I mean, it was interesting. I think what I got out of it really was the time between desensitizing. So, for example, like, say I'm doing this, I'm desensitizing with the lunge whip here, and then he shows me the sign of relaxation, and then I have to wait like 10 minutes before he licks and chews and he relaxes. So that showed me a couple of things. One, the desensitizing is not always like it's never really a reward, but as some people set it up in natural horsemanship, like, oh, this is the easy part, they're just gonna stand there, but he's worried about it. It took him 10 minutes to lick his lips. Like, he's got some worry in there. So that is important. Like, it's not always like, okay, yeah, they're standing still, but whatever you're doing might be scaring them still. So that was important. And I also wanted, the whole goal was I wanted to have him come from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic. That was my goal. And it does take a minute for him to do that. So my goal was to shorten that time span. So that's just what the tapping is. Like, okay, he's a little worried, I tap him 3 times and he's back to licking and chewing and going back to grazing. That's what I wanted to do with the desensitizing. I don't know if I accomplished that because I didn't do a whole lot of that afterward, but I thought it was interesting to just show as part of his training journey. So there, he took a big sigh there. He's licking and chewing now. So actually that didn't take very long at all. But now as I'm like watching the video and kind of knowing more than I did at the time, I'm like, okay, well, I just took away the scary stimulus. Yes, he's gonna lick and chew. So I don't know. I'm trying to mix, like, at the time I was trying to do, like, I wanted to learn more about like Ulrich Schiller's focus work, which I think is great, and doing some tapping and doing some negative reinforcement and doing some positive reinforcement and just kind of playing. And that's, I mean, Atlas is probably one of my biggest guinea pigs. but that's what we were trying to do at this point. And I think it's good to explore and try new things, and we tried it, and I thought maybe it would be good, like a good stepping stone. I definitely think, but I don't do this anymore. With the horses, I do still tap them though. I did like that. So, and I'll probably have another video just with, I have the Palomino in the background. She has a whole video series. I have Off the Track Thoroughbred, my miniature horse, and my other Mustang series. So, and then just like progress from Atlas and the difference. So it is interesting just to see the whole process. So I'm just gonna let him go ahead and sniff my hand and see if he wants to lick and chew. He already did that pretty fast after I was just tossing it over his back. He's a little bit more apprehensive of it on his back legs, so this might take a little bit longer. See if maybe he wants to put the rope in his mouth or the handle of my stick, and just kind of be interested. But I thought it was also important, like if you're gonna use negative reinforcement, to allow that horse to have that time in the middle, that like kind of reset time, think about things. It's not pressure, pressure, pressure all the time. It's like letting them sit. And I think that's really important. And that's what I was doing here. It was like, give him a minute to sit, think about it, relax if he'd like to, lick and chew if he wants. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but just gonna hang out here. Sometimes I'm more impatient than others because I want to kind of wait and let him lick and chew and become relaxed, and then I'm always like, okay, well, I need to get this done, I need to get that done, and then I want to go to the other side too soon. So always need to take your time. And like how he's approaching me now, like that's totally fine. I want him to come into my space occasionally. I don't care if he does, as long as he's doing this and he's not, you know, in a different body language shape where he's just kind of pushing into me. He took like 2 slow steps. He was investigating me. He's coming in a friendly way. As long as he's in a friendly way, I'm like, that's fine. It's just kind of what you allow. So, but what I found from the tapping is he really wants to be more investigating of me. So he wants to sniff me, lick my hands, lick objects. And I like that curiosity. I do like that a lot. So I think that's definitely helped with him and his training for sure. I think he's licking and chewing now. But you want to be careful to not try to push tapping into too many other things right away. Like I kind of wanted to tap and then, oh, let's have him lunge and then I'll just tap him and relax him. And he doesn't have that toolbox yet to where he's not becoming relaxed after a couple taps, and then he's worried, and now you're adding the tapping, he's just worried, and you might have to do it for a really long time. So I will wait before you start adding more like intense things where he could be more worried. But I definitely like it. I definitely saw a big difference in Atlas with it for sure. I like that. I only used the lash a few times and then he licked and chewed right away, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I learned a lot, so